As everybody's coming in, please just stand by. We have people coming in now, so we will start here very shortly within the next 20 to 30 seconds. We'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome to 2023 Stand Down ABCDE put on by Werner Fall Protection today. Thank you for joining us. Excuse me. Thank you for joining us today. Glad you're here. Please go ahead and present the slides and we'll go ahead and get started. Once again, welcome. The job site and safety security team's putting this on today. I have Matt with us, and I also have Sev, and I'm Chad. Once again, thank you for joining. Really greatly appreciate you joining us today. Next slide. As you can see, this is We Are One here at Werner. We always start off with a couple slides here. We're talking about the center one today. We care for our customers, end users, and our communities we live in. Today, we take this very serious. Specifically when it comes to fall protection. And one of our key things is here when we're talking about working with our communities and caring for our communities, we want to make sure or try our best to make sure people are trained so they can go home and using the fall protection products correctly on a daily basis. Next slide. This slide here, access to a higher standard. Safety's in our DNA, and we're at Werner Co. from the very beginning in 2012, when fall protection started here in July 2012, we started with the fall in mind and worked our way back. So we can really say from the day one, when we started doing fall protection here at Werner Co., we started with the fall and trying to make sure everybody goes home at the end of the day. Now also in the middle there, it says dedicated partner for life. You know, we take our training very seriously. Just this week alone, we've already, last week, I should say, during Stand Down last week, we trained over 24,000 people with over 200 events. Pretty exciting stuff there, trying to help make sure that happens. And then innovation comes standard. We always like to say we have a lot of stuff in the kitchen happening, trying to make products better and just to make your job easier and better on a daily basis on the job site. Next slide, please. So here is something we take a lot of pride in also. Here at Werner Co., we're a manufacturer. Make sure we're crystal clear here. We're a manufacturer when we make this statement, not a company, but a manufacturer stating we can help you with 4 of the OSHA top 10, specifically in fall protection, which has been #1 top 10 violations every year except one since 1997. #3, ladders and scaffolding, and what we're doing here today, #7, fall protection training requirements. Next slide. Now, Sev is going to walk you through the ABCs and the D and E. Specifically, we're going to talk a little bit later more about the D and E part. But once again, Sev, take it away.
Perfect, Chad. Thank you. And again, really appreciate this opportunity to talk something that's near and dear to our hearts, which is safety and fall protection specifically. So whenever we look at fall protection, right, we start with the hierarchy of controls, and we start with the top, right? The most effective way is eliminating or preventing the hazard completely. So instead of me going up to a height, can I leave myself on the ground and do that job with some type of tool, basically eliminating the fall hazard. The fall protection, so guardrails, anything like that that's going to prevent me from falling. And then we go our way down to where we're at today with PPE, with fall protection, travel restraint, and fall arrest. Next slide, please. So the 2 different types of fall protective systems, right? So fall restraint on the right, if you can imagine like a dog on a leash, right? It's going to put me in a position where I cannot physically reach that edge. Therefore, I don't have an exposure to a fall. fall arrest on the left side, however, is the work that I'm doing. I do have the potential of falling, and basically what can I do to mitigate that, right? So I'm going to have increased force on my body if I take a fall. There's going to be suspension, and obviously there's clearance and swing that's also going to be included in that. Next slide, please. So with fall protection, right, there's A, B, C, D, and E. So A is going to be our anchorage point and our anchorage connector. So anytime we talk about an anchor, the anchorage is what I'm tying off to. So we always want to look at something structural, an I-beam, a column, something like that that's going to hold my weight. And then the anchorage connector is what I'm actually using to tie off to that. So here's like a beam slider. It could be anything from a reusable bolt anchor. There's several different types of anchors based on the application, but we don't want to tie off to guardrails. We don't want to tie off to fire sprinklers, things like that, because this is what makes the whole system work. So if this anchor fails, everything else is going to fail. Next slide, please. So again, typically there's two options for anchorage strength, right? So 5,000 pounds is kind of the rule. Right. So, we always say if I can hang my pickup truck off of that anchor, it's going to be good enough for my weight. Right. So, or it's 2 times the arresting force of that system. Those are the 2 strength requirements when it comes to anchor points. Next slide, please. So anchorage location. So this is a great slide, and it talks about basically how the 3 different ways we can tie off. Right. So ideally, anytime we can, we want to tie off above head. And there are several reasons for that. We won't get into that on the call today. We'd love to come out to your job site and explain this to you in more detail. But tying off above head reduces a lot of clearance issues. I mean, it's the best practice if possible. If we can't do that, then we want to try to tie off at our D-ring, at our dorsal D-ring if possible. And lastly, if there are no other options, then we could tie off at foot level. And that requires a whole different type of SRL system, which is leading edge. And we'll get into that in a few slides here. Next slide, please. So the B portion is the body harness, right? Well, what am I putting on me in this equation for fall protection? So the full body harness, it contains my body, right? And it provides a variety of connection points. But the main function of the harness is to catch me when I take a fall, but also direct the forces where they're supposed to go for me to survive that fall. Next slide, please. Okay, so the full body harness, again, it's going to direct the forces to the pelvis. And if the harness is worn correctly, which Matt will go into when we do the live demo, that's how it's going to catch you. It's going to increase our suspension time. So the way that the forces are directed, how long can I stay in that position before someone could rescue me? It's going to fully contain my torso. I know in the past there were body belts were used, which is not allowed anymore. And the reason for that is exactly this technology here, which is much safer to use. And again, multiple applications, right? There are several different D-ring placements, and we'll get into that in the next few slides here. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest things with falls is any harness, it's going to catch you if it's worn properly, made to ANSI standards. But what happens post-fall, right? So when you take that fall and you're hanging there, the entire pressure of the harness, and Matt will show you again in the chair in the air demo, all of that pressure is on our groin with the leg straps, right? And our femoral artery, as we're hanging there, starts to get almost like a tourniquet. It starts to get squeezed. And if we don't have a way to relieve that tension, it can lead to serious effects if we're hanging up there long enough. And again, that differs based on the person's age, their weight, medical history, all of that. So the picture on my right here, the trauma straps, is one method, right? You wear these pouches on your hips, you drop them when you take a fall, and you step into it and you step up. Takes some practice, some getting used to. The beauty with the Werner line, and this is some proprietary to us, is the chair in the air. And these are these handles that are built into the subpelvic strap. And if you were to take a fall, you slide your thumbs into these handles and get it under you and transfer that pressure from your groin area to your meatier part of your body, so your hamstring, and you can basically sit in that position while we figure out how to get you down. So it's not a rescue plan, but it's to buy me time while I'm being rescued. Next slide, please. So the dorsal D-ring, right? This is the primary D-ring. Every harness has a dorsal D-ring, right? And this is our main connection point, right? So we want to keep it between our shoulder blades. And again, Matt will show all this in the walk it down demo, but we want to make sure that it's between our shoulder blades. And even though there are other D-rings that we can use on a harness, right? You have D-rings at the hips, D-rings at the shoulders, all for a bunch of different applications, but this is the primary D-ring that we need to tie off to. Next slide, please. So C is the connector portion. So we have the anchor, we have what I'm wearing. Next step is how do I connect myself to that anchor? Okay, so we can go next, please. So as far as carabiners, the hooks, the D-rings, it's got to be forged steel or an equivalent. Next, please. It's got to be self-closing and self-locking, right? So it's got to close on its own and it's got to lock on its own, and it's got to have a dual action to open that lock. The connector itself has to be rated for 5,000 pounds with a 3,600 pound load proof, and it has to have a gate strength of 3,600 pounds. And it's got to be manufactured by the manufacturer for fall protection. Next slide. So these are a couple of examples of non-locking connectors, which we obviously cannot use for fall protection. So you know, a carabiner like the one on the right, if I saw that at like a sporting goods store, I wouldn't assume that that's made for fall protection unless it's specifically stated for fall protection. Next slide, please. So energy absorbers, basically these in a fall, these break open to reduce the amount of force that's put on my body. And if you can tab 4 times, Stacy. Perfect. So we just wanted to point out the second one there. The actual shock absorber is there, although it's not like the other 3. The shock absorber itself is inside the backpack that goes on your back. Next, please. Two more times. Thanks, Stacy. So when we look at the energy absorbers, just to remember that we have class 1 and class 2 SRL. So this used to be class A and class B. So the transition is being made to class 1 and class 2. And all of Werner SRLs are already being made to that standard, and it's labeled that way. So you can see in the pictures here, class 1 and class 2. And the main thing we want to point out is class 1 SRLs have to be used above head, so above the dorsal D-ring, right? And they are made with 400 pounds of arresting force, whereas class 2 SRLs, which can be used for both above the dorsal D-ring and below, right? If it's used at below the dorsal D-ring, it's 310 pounds, and above the dorsal D-ring is 400 pounds. And again, we'd love to come out to any of your job sites and talk about this in more detail. But for the purposes of this presentation, just remember class 1 and class 2 SRLs is what the new change is going to be. Next slide. So again, we talked about this. So class 1 is above the D-ring. So if you can see that red line there, it lines up with the dorsal D-ring. So if I'm above the D-ring, right, I have to use a class 1 SRL. But anytime I'm going to go above or below that D-ring, now I have to look at a class 2 leading edge SRL. Next slide. So perfect. So D is the descent portion or our rescue plan. So that's the D portion. So rescue planning, again, we talked about the chair in the air, right? So post fall, buy me more time. And a rescue plan can be as simple as an extension ladder. It can be a scissor lift. It's basically, we have to have a plan prior to me going up there and doing that work. So if something were to happen, how am I going to be rescued, right? So that's what the rescue plan is. And we also have on the right here, that orange pouch is called our rescue ladder. And this is a really cool and really self-contained unit where if the person were to take a fall, you have essentially an 18-foot ladder inside of a bag that someone above me where I'm tied off can hook this up to that same anchor and drop this 18-foot ladder down to me, and I can use that to climb up and get back to safety. Also, we have a version of this that has a belay system where that could be lowered down to me. I can hook that to my back D-ring, and now the person up top can assist me and help me climb that ladder. Next slide, please. And E is the education portion, which is essentially, what we're doing here. So all employees that are going to be using fall protection, before they're exposed to any type of a hazard, they need to know what they're wearing, how to use it, how to inspect it, and that's critical to keeping the employees safe. And Matt's going to do a great job now of showing us how to inspect a harness, how to properly wear a harness, and how to get in that chair in the air position post fall. Take it away, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Seth. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Okay. How's that look, Chad?
Looks good.
All right. So, when it comes to the training and education on fall protection, one of the things that you constantly have to do in the way that we talk about this is two things. One is I say that this is life-saving equipment, right? So the expectations are when somebody is using a harness, tackle, and an anchor point, they have a fall, their expectations are it's going to work. So the way that we talk about that is in my expectation as a supplier and manufacturer of this stuff is that they expect it that way. Okay. And by doing that, we say it's walk it down. So when we talk about walk it down, I mean, what we're going to do is we're going to start at the sternal D ring here. We're going to work ourselves all the way down the harness and we're going to do our inspection. Okay. When you start at the dorsal D ring here, you're going to see there's a piece of plastic right there underneath the D ring right there. That's there. What that does is help support all that rubbing that continually happens throughout the workday. So you want to make sure one of those pieces of plastic is going to be on the harness. If you work yourself down to what you're looking for in your webbing, this particular harness has a red web alert inside of it. So as I work my way down the harness, if there's too much fraying or cutting, then the red web is going to shine through that. If you don't have that, then you got to look for rips, tears, cuts, abrasions. I mean, again, this is life-saving equipment. So if you at all are just kind of questioning the fact that it can support a fall, it's safer just to kick it and get a new one. Okay. As you work yourselves down to, you're going to see this padding. Okay, this padding that's down here really isn't a part of the harness. It's not integral. So there's a little bit of a rip or tear there. That's not going to be anything to throw that harness out of service. Okay. As you work yourselves down here too, you got your first point of adjusting, which is going to be your chest strap. This one right here is a quick connect, and it has a green circle there. So as you push that through, you hear the click, but there's also a window that will allow you to see that. And that means you have a positive connection with your quick connect. On the chest strap here, you have two things here. You got this thing right here. It's like a webbing keeper back here. So what this does is you work throughout the day, you can push this up against those connections. That allows that to stay in place throughout the day. If that's ruined, if that's defective, that's not going to be anything to take this out of service at all. Right here too, you see these just keep your excess webbing out of the way as you work. Right here, there's a big one right here. This is going to be your labels. Okay, you have to have a label that's legible and present. If it isn't there, you can't read it, or somebody cut it off, be a brand new harness, but because you do not have the label, you do have to take it out of service. Okay, there's important information that are on there, just like your serial numbers in case there's ever a situation where you need to have your products recalled. We need to know where that harness was made. It tells us, okay, the manufacturing plant and when it was made. As you continue to work yourselves back here, you got this back strap right here. This keeps you in the harness. So if you were ever in a fall, if you did have this that was non-existing, or you would have the construction. If you didn't have this and you fell because of the fall, the possibility you're just going to slide right out the backside of it. So that's why that's important. If you look at the harnesses too, you have certain stitch patterns and sew patterns. You also have this impact indicator on the back. So this impact indicator on the harness is, all harnesses should have this impact indicator because this is just where the webbing is sewn back into itself. And as this pops, you will see a tag that comes out that says impact load has been present. So you have to take it out of service. I have a harness that I use to demonstrate and showcase on job sites where we did a pull test on it and it took 470 pounds of force to pop that stitch, okay, i.e. that's a fall. And as you keep working yourself down here, you got your lanyard keepers. Okay, this is where you would park the lanyard. So if they're not using a retractable or a lanyard, their snap hook or rebar hook goes here. That way it takes weight off their back as they're working. The floppiness stops coming around from all the stuff of the movement. But also if they walk by something and it catches, this breaks away at 40 to 80 pounds of force. It'll break away so it don't go with it. Now these do break. If it does break, this is something that does not need to make the harness be taken out of service. We offer replacements for those. And as you work yourself down here, you got roller buckles. So now you have another point of adjustment. So you're inspecting those to make sure they're functioning and working. And you have these types of, like I said, stitch patterns. This is the integrity of the harness. Definitely make sure those are intact, as you can see. Work yourselves down. Again, you got quick connect legs down here. At this one, sometimes you have tongue and buckle leg. So it all depends on the style of the harness. But you need to take the time to inspect it. When these grommet holes, you don't want any free floating ones, anything that's moving, degraded, rust. You don't want them when they're already elongated either, because when you do have a fall, that tooth is going to rip and stretch and pull to that next grommet hole. So you just want to make sure everything is intact when you have these. Okay. And again, positive connection when it comes to the leg straps. You have your green circle here. You're going to hear a click. And as it clicks, you'll be able to look up to that window and see the green connection. Then you know you have a positive connection. Then that's the walk it down on the harness. Chad and Seth, is there anything you'd like to add to that, or should we go to the demonstration?
I think you did an outstanding job. Keep moving.
Okay. All right. Are you going to talk about this, Chad, or you want me to talk about it as I put it on?
Okay, so you go ahead and then whenever you get lifted up, I'll talk.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to properly putting on the harness, so now we've inspected the harness, which needs to be done before each use. And a competent person needs to inspect it. A competent person is somebody that has been deemed that by the company. Okay, and they need to have that inspected once or twice a year. Werner, we would like to see that done at least twice a year. What that means is all the equipment comes in, the competent person inspects it, initials it, and says that this product is safe to use. And there is no lifetime on this product, just as long as that competent person says it's safe. But it is up to the user to inspect it before every time they put it on. And while we're talking about that, we do have a philosophy here when it comes to how we put this on. It's either all on or all off. We say that because we walk on job sites a lot of time and they'll walk around just like this with the chest strap is on, but their leg straps are off. And as you're walking around that, you may decide to go back to work, or someone says it's time to go back and you forget to put your leg straps back on. So that's why we say all on or all off, so that way there isn't that mishap if it happens. Okay. The chest straps, where do I want my chest strap? I want my chest strap nipple height is where I want that. I don't want it too low, I don't want it too high. On the Werner harnesses, you do have a free movement here, so that's why you can go up and you can go down with these harnesses. But want a nipple height, because if it's too low, it's possible you can slide out of the harness. If it's too high, you're going to have a foot to a foot and a half harness stretch whenever you fall. So if it's already too high, this is going to end up right into your throat, and that's not where you want that. Okay, so that's why we say right here. You want your webbing tucked back into yourself, like I said. The lanyard webbing keeper goes right there, and then this excess little elastic style, you tuck your webbing back through there. Okay. Now, with the leg straps, we use the term snug. Okay, snug means loose, but not too loose, and it means not too tight. And you have your adjustments here too. Okay, so you have your hip adjustments. This will also bring that D-ring up and tighten up your sternum up here. So the way we say this is we say take your opposite hand, slide it through, ball a fist up, and pull through. Okay. When I have a snug fit, I do this because I have a little bit of resistance. So as I pull them through, I don't want to put my hand in and just slide it right through without even feeling any of the webbing. But I also don't want to put my hand in there, ball a fist up, and then not be able to get out that hand. Okay. And then you do the exact same thing on the opposite way. And then on your D-ring, you want your D-ring to be right in the center of your torso. You always want to err on the caution of higher than lower, because if it's low, what's going to happen is the way the harnesses are designed, you have your D-ring in the right position and you have a fall. You got to think about somebody's fall, and it's an awkward fall, a slip, a trip, or a fall. You could be face first. So if I fall face first and my D-ring is in the right position, the system will catch, and then my feet will start to slide forward, and I'll be in that vertical position. So I want that 15 degrees frontwards or backwards, so I can try to do self-rescue. I can use my trauma straps. I can get my blood flow moving. But if I have my D-ring too low, which does happen a lot, when you see on job sites, if someone were to fall like that, not just Superman effect, because as you fall, you'll fall like this, but as soon as the system catches, what's going to happen to your body? Your body's going to fold right over. So that's why it's very important to make sure that D-ring is up. And then when I always talk about the trains too, I always ask people if they can see their back. They'll all say no. That's just where you tell people about. That's very important to make sure you can help somebody out. If you see the D-ring low, it literally takes 3 minutes to adjust it just to get it up a little bit higher. Okay. Then if you look down here, we have this part down here where your pelvic strap is. So you want the pelvic strap low, because when you fall as well, we just talked about like your vertical position. Fall vertically like this, then a lot of the force is going to hit the backside of your legs and your butt. And that's where that's where you need that force to hit. Sometimes if people have it a little bit too high and it's up at the middle of their butt, and you have that fall, everything rises. So a lot of that force is going to hit the bottom side of your back. That's not where you want that force. You want the force down here. That good, Chad? Or?
That's good. Excellent. Let's go ahead and get you and hang yourself up there now. Now Matt's going to lift himself up, and with a 4-in-1 here, he's going to, first of all, he's going to lift himself up, and then he's going to pull down his front chest strap. So you'll notice the first thing he does here after he lifts himself up, right, he's going to pull it down, because if he took a fall, that would be up in his chest. Matt, can you go ahead and just pull that up so you can show them that that could actually go up all the way to your neck? Sorry, see, and right there, that's the choking hazard. So you want to make sure you have an adjustable harness that you can get that out of your throat, because all he's doing now is lifting himself up. Now he's going to actually go into the chair in the air. He's going to lift his legs up in the front, put them together, and slide into what we call the chair in the air. And he's going to reach up and pull his pads down around his neck. On this harness here, we actually have pads around here that helps the collarbone to make sure it stays comfortable. And as Matt turns around now to the side angle, you can see the chair in the air. And the cool thing about this is he can sit there for a while. Matt, talk to us. How comfortable you feel?
It's much more comfortable than I was literally 10 seconds ago. So, absolutely good.
So turn back around, and we always suggest that you do what we call riding the bike now. He can actually take and like he's pedaling it back to keep that blood flowing. He also can go ahead and readjust. He can move forward or backwards again. That's the cool thing about this. You're not stuck with just your feet in, as Seb talked about earlier. When you're in those trauma straps, there's nothing you can do. All you can do is stand there and lock your knees out, and after a while, you're going to pass out. But here, Matt can continually to adjust, to move around, keep his body going, keep that blood flowing, which is the key factor here. And once again, when we started today, we talked about when we started in July 2012, we started with the fall in mind and worked our way back. And that's the whole idea here, the key thing we want to bring to you today. Once again, Matt, turn around so they can see you from the side, see the chair in the air. And pretty comfortable. Once again, he wouldn't want to stay up there all day, but he can definitely step there for a while. So the key thing that when Seb talked about the rescue plan, what this does now, he's not up there screaming, he's not up there yelling. It brings calm. It brings calm to the area, brings calm to the job site. And I don't know if you know this or not, but it's just like confined space. Over half the people get hurt trying to rescue someone. Up to 75% of the people, that's when they get hurt, is when they're trying to rescue and get someone down. Just like in confined space, someone natural to go in and get someone and bring them out. So once again, Matt can be calm, cool, and collective here. You heard him just talk. Talk to us one more time. Tell us how sunny the weather is outside, Matt.
Actually, nice, about 82 degrees today. Nice.
Okay. All right. So you can hear his voice is not changing. That's another key factor. If he was in a position where he could not feel so good, we're going to leave it at that. He would not be talking in such a calm manner. Matter of fact, he would be speaking in a high-pitched voice. So once again, the chair in the air, it is part of the rescue. It is not the rescue, but it's part of it. And we're very proud of that here at Werner Co. Matt, go ahead and let yourself back down. We do not suggest you do it at home. We are paid professionals doing this, so we highly suggest you don't do this by yourself. But here at Werner Co, we get trained on this all the time. Now, I would like to say thank you to Matt and to Seth for doing this today and open it up for questions. Any questions? Any questions at all?
Yeah, we don't have anything in the chat yet, but please submit in the Q&A if anyone has questions.
And if for some reason you don't want to ask us here, please just put it in the chat and we will email you back the answer. Leave it, make sure you give us your phone number or your email address, and we'll love to do that. Wait just a moment here. All right. Once again, we'll hang out here for just a little bit. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us. Once again, thank you, Seb and Matt, for taking the time today. Hope everyone has a blessed day. It says, can you share the main difference between chair in the air and trauma straps? Absolutely. Take that away, Mr. Matt. Matt, take that one away. What's the main difference between the trauma straps and the chair in the air?
The main difference is the chair near is built into the harness. There, with trauma straps, there's two different pieces, components to that. They're pucks. And to be honest with you, everybody makes their own trauma strap. So that makes training pretty difficult on that. But a trauma strap would be just like a little hockey puck on each side that's zippered in, and you would unzip it. And then you would kind of gauge the distance to then have almost like a big loop or a ladder, which would allow you to put your feet in there to eliminate that pressure. And then the chair in the air, if you saw when I positioned myself and put myself in that chair in the air, I was able to slide my hands through on the top part of my legs there, and a big opening. So that big opening right there is what allows that blood flow to continually go up and down the legs. And I don't have to maneuver or manipulate any type of trauma relief straps. And every single Werner harness that's out there has that feature. So it's not just the Proform Cadillac, harness. It's every single harness that we have.
So Matt.
And if I can add to that, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say if I can add to that too, the chair in the air, the straps being built into the harness is more instinctive, right? The trauma straps take a little bit of practice and to get it into the right length so you can step into it and actually relieve that tension. It just, you have to know how to do it. Go ahead, Chad.
Thank you. So Darren asked a question. Matt, I'm gonna put you on the spot. If you don't understand, do you have a spacer for the back of the D-ring?
Do I have a spacer?
Yeah, the spacer, a new spacer in the back of the D-ring to slide the personal SRLs on. Do you have a harness with the spacer or no?
I don't. That's because it's on its way to Kansas City right now.
Okay, no problem. So we do. The question that came in: do we have some way to show or help out with the harness and retractable on the back of it? So absolutely we do. We have a spacer. We have one that can slide in the back, actually below the D-ring, and then you can actually slide it in to keep the SRL firm on your back. And we actually, on our smaller, what we call personal SRLs, we actually have backpacks on those that actually help and control all that, and it can actually ties into the actual harness. Does that answer your question, Darren? All right. So next question, how much payout of the shock packs on the SRL? Some contractors are choosing class 1 thinking they're getting a shorter fall clearance. Is that correct? Anytime you have a class 1, you're always going to have a better option than if you're doing class 2. So that's a very technical question. It will be marked on the new class 1. It will actually be marked on your SRL, how far it will pay out. But the key thing here at Werner Co., our class 1s are all 24 inches or less. Now, when you go to the class 2, where you're going below the D-ring, where Seb talked about, then you're going to need, because you're tying off at foot level and below, you're going to need the 17 foot for clearances. And that's what we'd love to come to your job site and talk about. That's one of the biggest things. And you're absolutely correct. There's a big confusion in the field about that, whoever asked that question. Any more questions? It's great questions. Well, we'll say it once again, thank you for joining us today here at Werner Co. for our ABCDE 2022 stand down. And thank you. We hope you all have a safe and blessed day. Thanks again.
Thank you.